Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi everybody. This is your boy Naeem Muhammad with Islamic Relief USA, where we're working together for a better world on this first day of Dhul Hijjah. Congratulations to all of you who made it to Dhul Hijjah. As we know, these are the most blessed days for us during this time. And you're here with me on the Water Relief Podcast. As always, bringing you all things live about Islamic Relief, what we're doing around the world, learn about some of the projects that we're doing. As you know, as I said, it's the Hijjah season, so we're doing Qurbani or Udhiyah at this time, as well as a lot of different challenges that we're doing. You can learn about all those things by visiting us at irusa.org/Qurbani. Or you can just go to IRUSA and click on one of the banners that we have on the main screen. Again, thank you everybody for checking in. Really appreciate you being with us today. As I said before, we're going to talk a little bit about our Qurbani program. We're going to also talk about Islamic Relief's work in Yemen. I have a guest from our programs team that's going to give you a bird's eye view into the work that we're doing there, and then we'll also have some footage from the field on one of our trips that Brother Anwar Khan took with us.
The COVID-19 pandemic has put the world in chaos. We all have made our sacrifices, whether it was big or small. Our lives have changed. But for many around the world, their sacrifices continue just as they were before the pandemic. This Qurbani Udhiyah season, give for them. From farm to families, share meat this Eid. Donate today at IRUSA.org.
That's right, donate today at IslamicReliefUSA.org to support our Qurbani Udhiyah program. It is our largest feeding program of the year that we do. Oh, we got a couple people checking in as we're doing there. You know, we got our good friend. Let's see who people are checking in. We got Brother David Hawa, good friend of ours, a good friend of the program, giving salams. We also have Maman all the way from Sumatra, I think it's Sumatra in Indonesia. Oh man, amazing. I love the coffee over there. It's really a great thing. Alhamdulillah. And so many of you checking in around the world, wherever you are. We really appreciate you being with us here. And look at that, David, you're all in the broadcast, like across my face. Gotta change that. Our good friend from Sumatra, Maman Dedek Sri Langala Tihari Tirahir. I really destroyed that. I hope you don't mind. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us today. All right. As I said today, our focus, or the focus of the topic that we're going to be looking into today is about Islamic Relief's work in Yemen. Islamic Relief being one of the premier agencies that are working on the ground to help people in need in Yemen, the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Let's play a little bit of video and then we'll get into our presentation for today. And as the person just said, make sure you're supporting our Qurbani program. We're doing Qurbani in Yemen. We're doing Qurbani in so many other countries around the world. This is the season. These are the blessed days. And help us to support this great cause. So let's get into Yemen.
With the ongoing conflict in Yemen, already one of the poorest countries in the region, thousands of lives have been lost. Across Yemen, over 22 million people are in need of urgent humanitarian aid.
All right. As I said before, the world's worst humanitarian crisis to date right now is Yemen. And Islamic Relief has committed to the people there that will continue to do the aid work. But you need to know a little bit about that aid work, what it's like, what our history has been like in the region, and all that kind of great stuff. So I want to make sure that we can get someone from our programs team to give us a little bit of a view into our work there, help us to understand how long we've been there and the type of projects that we do. We'll also again have some video from our good brother Anwar Khan about his visit last year to Yemen and the people he met, things he saw, and how he was moved. by this trip. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on my colleague, Barbara. Hey, Barbara, how's it going?
Hey Naeem, how are you? I'm well.
I'm doing pretty good here. Thank you for joining us today. And to tell our viewers a little bit more about the work that we're doing in Yemen. Before we get into talking about the project and the presentation you have for us, tell us a little bit about what is your position at Islamic Relief USA?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Naeem. So, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'm Barbara Galitz. I'm the International Programs Coordinator for the Middle East North Africa region. So, I take care of all of our grants in the Middle East region, making sure that all of our reporting is, accurate and on track so that I can give all the information to our marketing team when they do all the wonderful reports that they send to you.
Awesome. What's a day like? I mean, what's an average day like for a person in your position who is a international program coordinator?
Yeah, it's always a little different. I mean, there's always proposals coming in the field asking questions about, when when the next project is going to be starting, what kind of funding is going to be available, what can, sharing ideas and reports and just different things that we can collaborate on to make our programming better.
Awesome, awesome. All right. There was a time I was hanging out with the programs team, and it would always be amazing for me just to be able to see all these great projects that are coming in from those field offices, looking for Islamic Relief USA to find donors, community members who are hearing what's happening. Either they're hearing on the news what's happening in Yemen, or they have family members there, and seeing that all these really great projects that are coming over to your guys' desk, making sure they're in the great place, taking them to our project approval committee, and getting those funds. I mean, that's probably, I don't know. It was exciting to me. Do you find some excitement in there as well? So,
Oh yeah, it's great. It's a lot of fun to see just the ideas that the field comes up with to help people and to, just look at what they're thinking can make people's lives better on the ground. So, sometimes it's having a water project that, not only are they fixing a water well, but they're also forming committees with members of the community where that well is, so that those people are trained on how to run the well and make sure that it's maintained properly and that the water source doesn't become recontaminated. So it's really cool to see the ways that they come up with to make sure our projects work and they last for a long time.
Excellent. Well, I won't. Like I said, this is going to be the show today is going to be about quick half an hour, 35 minutes in total to talk about Yemen, because we have. I mean, for those who don't know, we have for the first 10 days of the Hijjah, there's programming every day, starting about 3 p.m. today for 2 hours, talking about the life of Prophet Ibrahim. There's game shows that we're doing. There's challenges that we're participating. This is going the way Ramadan was. We just went through Ramadan. Islamic Relief's live page was the place to be. It will be again even today, and we're actually doing a global program where all the Islamic Relief offices around the world will be participating in those presentations. So you stick around. But right now, we're going to take you to Islamic Relief's work in Yemen. So let's go ahead and get into your presentation.
Yeah, great. So I just wanted to give a brief overview of Yemen. If we go to the next slide, we'll see that the population of Yemen is about 30.5 million people. Of that, 24.3 million people are in need. So that's, way over half of the population. It's a lot of people.
Right.
Islamic Relief Yemen has been active in Yemen since 1998, doing a variety of programming. But we've grown, especially since the outbreak of the latest conflict in 2015. We now have 315 staff members, the great majority of which are local Yemeni staff with, maybe 4 or 5 expatriate staff. But the great majority are Yemenis that Islamic Relief employs in the country, in addition to 3,000 volunteers across the country who help implement our programs there. It's actually one of our largest operations in around the world. And as you'll see, we have 9 field offices. around the country, primarily in the western end, which is also where there are higher concentrations of people. The eastern side going towards Oman is generally less populated. It's less densely populated. The main office is located in Sana'a, with other offices located, as you see, in Adid, Damar, Marib, Sada, Amran, Hodeidah, Reima, and Ta'iz governorate. So through that, we're able to actually reach up to 19 governorates where we've implemented projects at any one time. Currently, IR Yemen is implementing in 15 governorates.
Amazing.
So now just to give an overview of the humanitarian situation, the number of malnourished children could reach 2.4 million by the end of the year, which is a 20% increase from malnutrition rates in 2019. 30,000 children could develop life-threatening severe acute malnutrition, which is SAM, in the second half of this year. About 14 million people, which is half the population, are at risk of famine. In addition to that difficulty, there's poor access to water, which is helping the spread of COVID-19 and other diseases such as cholera, dengue fever, and other waterborne diseases. So far, there are currently 1,585 reported COVID cases. That was as of July 8th, I believe, and 444 associated deaths. Now, keep in mind, these are only confirmed cases. This testing is difficult in Yemen due to the lack of testing, as well as labs that can actually process the tests. So it's likely much higher than that. The predicted number of people who will die from COVID is estimated to be the same amount as the aggregated number of casualties from the 5 years of conflict. That's over 100,000 people. In 2020, through June 3rd, which is the most recent data I currently have from our team in Yemen, is that there have been over 137,000 suspected cases of cholera, with 36 associated deaths. 23% of the cases are under 5 years old, and most deaths are children under 5 and elderly people over the age of 60. In addition to that, over half of Yemen's 3,500 medical facilities have been damaged or destroyed in the conflict, and only half of them are still functioning, and even those are highly strained by lack of access to supplies and quality care. Lack of medicine and personal protective equipment is also really difficult, and it's hard to protect practitioners from disease as a result.
Yeah, one of the great, I think, just to pause here for a second, because, just to give people even more context of what we're trying to do. So we kind of started out just to kind of let you guys be able to see the level of how many offices that we have in the region and how dug in we are helping people in need, and to start to give you a context in which we work. The context in which you work, how many people suffer from malnutrition. We're talking. I didn't know this was the case either. That we're talking about, as long as this the number of deaths that happened because of this crisis, now COVID is projected to match that in such a small amount of time. It's literally heartbreaking. And alhamdulillah, we're giving you the context, but also you'll also start to get the context of the actual type of activities that we're doing to combat many of these things. So there is light at the end of this tunnel, just for those who are checking in with us. So.
Yeah, indeed, there is light at the end of the tunnel. We are doing our best to provide programming, but before we get to that, there are just a couple extra additional contextual points to add. One of those is that there's not sufficient access to water, sanitation, and hygiene programming, or wells, due to being a water scarce country on top of the conflict, creating additional challenges. Around 9.5 million children don't have access to sufficient water. And then on top of that, you have a fuel crisis that is exacerbating that issue, because water pumps are generally run by generators that need fuel to run. Hospitals also need that fuel to be able to keep their lights on and treat people who need things like ventilators or other, electronically run machines. And with the fuel shortage, it makes it very hard to continue those services. Since June 8th, no commercial fuel vessels have entered Hodeidah port to replenish the supply of fuel. So it is also a concern a constant concerns over the past 5 years of, having access to fuel for healthcare and for, being able to pump water and get access to water. In addition to that, the Yemeni rial has depreciated rapidly and is constantly in flux, meaning that people aren't able to buy food and medicine and any other essentials life-saving requirements. So food prices have risen by 10 to 20% at the beginning of June alone, making it even harder. The slide that we're on currently is showing just the estimated number of people in need in 2019 and 2020. You can see, especially in the areas of WASH, which is water sanitation and hygiene, you see an increase from 2019 to 2020 from 17.8 million people to 20.5 million people. And we can expect now, especially with COVID, hitting Yemen pretty hard, that food security is also going to be a growing concern in addition to the increased strain on the healthcare system. That being said, we're working in the field, and we do face a number of challenges that make our work much more interesting. First of which is the conflict itself. We have active front lines. You can see them here outlined in this red line, where you have the conflict, the parties to the conflict that create access challenges. It makes it difficult for IRUSA sometimes to get into area, move staff or aid in and out of certain areas. They are constantly coordinating with the authorities to make that work as efficiently as possible. But in a conflict zone where everything is changing, they have to be flexible and work around what they're able to do. So the other thing here is getting sub-agreements with those authorities. Before IRUSA, yeah.
Can you explain what a sub-agreement?
Yeah, so a sub-agreement, after a donor such as Islamic Relief USA gives money to Islamic Relief Worldwide to work in Yemen with IRUSA, the Yemen team has to build a sub-agreement that they submit to the authorities, either in the north or the south, who then review the project activities and the budgets to make sure that they're in line with the aid goals and they're meeting humanitarian needs. And it's a level of government oversight that the Yemen office has to comply with.
Excellent.
So these sub-agreements get submitted for approval, and it's not uncommon to face major delays in getting those done. So this is, for example, a snapshot of some pending projects with the authorities to get approval for it. It can take 1 to 3 months to get approval. Sometimes it can take up to 4 or 6, depending on the delays and the questions and the back and forth that happens. In addition to government restructuring that causes delays, as well as COVID causing delays as well. The IRUSA has a good relationship with all the authorities in order to move those along, and they make sure they are communicate with the needed people to ensure that humanitarian aid gets where it needs to go to the people in most need. Another challenge that's faced by the entire aid community is funding. Only 50% of the required funding is being met by the international community based on the UN's need assessment. In addition to that, the U.S. has cut all of its aid to Yemen, which has drastically impacted UN programming especially. The UN has reported that as a result of the U.S. cuts, incentive payments for 10,000 health workers have been stopped. These are frontline staff who are working in health clinics and combating, COVID and treating people who are wounded by the conflict. Water and sanitation programs are also closing, and children, up to 5 million children can go without vaccinations. And by August, malnutrition programs will be having to close down if funding gaps are not met.
So, I mean, basically very dire situation when funding stops, especially U.S. being a huge donor country to many of the various calamities that are happening around the world. And I'm glad that donors on our side are continuing to do what they can. All these organizations doing whatever they can to help meet those gaps. But those are huge gaps if that funding stops. That's very difficult.
Yeah, and just kind of emphasizing that the UNICEF gave this quote here: "We are trying to prevent the health and water systems collapsing, and we are holding those pieces together. now we are on the brink of collapse. So that, I think that kind of really encapsulates the high level of need in Yemen for continued intervention from UN agencies and INGOs and, other organizations, including Islamic. So what are we doing?
Light at the end of the tunnel. Let's go.
Yes.
All right.
Reaching into that after all those terrible statistics.
Yeah.
IR Yemen, as a whole, has 14 food security and livelihood projects, over 800 distribution points, and are assisting 300,000 families a month. IR Yemen is the largest partner of the UN World Food Program. They're delivering 20% of their portfolio. Those 800 distribution points are throughout the country, throughout the governorates in which IR Yemen is active, and are manned by IR Yemen's team, as well as those 3,000 volunteers who are helping distribute food. Yeah. 2.3 million people, which is those 300,000 families, receive food on a monthly basis. And the Yemen team is taking precautions for COVID-19. They're wearing masks. They're making sure that they're wearing gloves, having hand sanitizers in place. You can see in this photo in the bottom that either a staff or a volunteer is helping ensure people are using hand sanitizer and keeping their distance while collecting at the distribution site.
Yeah, I mean, I'm again, for me, it's just imagining, like this compounding, difficulties, and then actually having an organization being able to be dynamic enough to be able to continue. So it's really great, and thank you again. I'm not saying you're done your presentation, but thank you again for taking this time. I know oftentimes donors are wondering, like, what do projects look like? What is actually happening? Are my funds really doing something there? So thank you for helping give us on the tech side. Oftentimes, IR will send one of our imams or our fundraisers out, and they get to hear. But you guys are now being able to hear more on the actual the nuts and bolts of what it takes to do relief work in this type of situation, in an active war, in a war zone, and with people dealing with so many different things. So let's get back to it.
Yeah, and Naeem, this is just something that these teams are incredibly dedicated towards doing. I will send an answer. I'll send a question at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's evening there, and I'll get an answer.
Excellent.
It's amazing how dedicated that this staff is. They're dedicated to helping people.
Excellent. And to the donors too, and and I always tell people, donors, you're that link in the chain, because Barbara wouldn't have anything to give them but bad news if you guys aren't doing what you're doing. So please continue to donate, continue to support, and continue to be a part of the good in these people's lives.
Yeah, so back to programming. In addition to food security, we're also working in WASH programs, which stands for Water, Sanitation, and Hygiene. What we're primarily focusing on is rehabilitating water schemes. Now, what does that mean? That means you have a water source, usually a well of some sort, that has become non-functional, either due to lack of maintenance, due to the conflict, due to contamination of the water source. So what we're doing is we're going in and installing solar power water pumps to help mitigate that fuel crisis I mentioned earlier, to make sure that there is energy to help pump that water, even if there is no fuel available for a generator. Wow. In addition to that, we're helping clean up the water, testing the water, making sure that there's enough water in that water source to provide the community with clean water. So not only is this, this isn't just a hand pump that's going to help, 50 people. It's helping thousands of people in a community. In addition to that, the teams are providing water management committees from the community with training on operation and maintenance of these water sources. This is helping the communities take ownership of these projects and making sure that they know how to keep this working far into the future without having to have a donor come back every year or every 2 years to make sure, that it's broken. We're giving the community that knowledge so that they can go forward with that.
So, and these are, just to, dig deeper a little bit in that, these are locals, I mean, it's again, we're not just creating a project and just plopping it onto the land and hoping it's best. We're talking about organizing locals so they're part and parcel of the project. They help maintain it, they help grow it, they help supervise it. They're in it from top to bottom, right?
Indeed, they're involved in making sure that everything is going from A to B. We bring in contractors that build the well or rehabilitate the well to make sure that it's working. I think on the next slide, there's a picture of a water tower that they've built in the solar field as well. But then these communities are then trained on how to make sure that's continued to run. And then they're given, lessons on how to make sure that, okay, you have clean water. That's great. What do you do with it? So they're taught on how to, do proper hand washing techniques, how to make sure you clean out any sort of water storage tank that you're using in your own home after you collect the water from the water point. You're making sure that that people know, how to properly use soaps and make sure that their kids are clean and they wash their hands before meals. So it's an integrated program to make sure that those communities all come together as much as possible. Yeah, and then so I think if we go to the next slide, there's an example of a little kid holding up what we call IEC materials. They're educational materials for families and children to learn the proper way to, wash your hands. Or like this little boy's holding up a poster showing mosquito nets, which are incredibly important for keeping away mosquito-borne illnesses. So this is the kind of programming and training that we give communities in addition to, water well rehabilitation.
Awesome. And when people talk, I mean, and we're also, we're all now like even getting like these kind of hand washing demonstrations. And at first I was like, what do you mean? But because of the context in which people live, water scarcity or like you said, water storage and the things that can happen, it isn't just like a bunch of people walking around, they don't know, they're having issues about just being clean, but there's a certain level of maintenance and understanding of in depth. It's not just like a one and done, but there's an understanding. You're just trying to get there. Like if we're going to prevent disease, if we're going to try to have the best health outcomes, especially in a place like Yemen right now that is under severe deficits on just about anything that will help to sustain life. All these type of trainings, using these bed nets and different things like that are part and parcel of what we need to help get people trained up in understanding. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And just last note on the water part is, I mean, I can go to the tap and fill a glass of water in, 5 seconds. These people are often having to go walk some distance to these water points. It's a lot of work. It usually falls on women and children, which has other repercussions in terms of time, taking care of health, going to school, and all of these other things. So it makes a big difference having clean water that you know what to do with and you know how to properly store it in your home.
Right, awesome.
So last picture here is just another it's a water scheme. It's the pumps for a filling station. Thought it was a nice illustration of the work that we do. This is a project that IRUSA is funding.
Awesome.
This project is just wrapping up now, and we're looking into another phase for a water program where we'd be working on rehabilitating another 12 or so water points.
I know I remember all the times when the project proposals come from the IRU from UK and they use the word scheme. Like for me in my head, always like triggers like, what do you mean? This is like some kind of but it's this is the international language here.
Yeah.
That
what's meant by a scheme is definitely a water system. It definitely a piece of jargon. You caught me there. I failed to take it out.
No, it's cool, but it was like one of the funny things that I was like, no, we cannot, go out up in front of the mosque, be like, yeah, we're developing schemes across the world to help people have better lives. No, these are programs and projects and different things. So that's awesome. So sorry about that. I just thought I'd bring that up. Okay, cool.
No, you're good. Another slide just showing the pictures of the awareness sessions.
So this is the schools, then it looks like.
Yeah, it looks like they're in school. You can see the volunteer in the back and in the front of the room, making sure that everything's going nice and smoothly. It's always fun with children. All right, moving on to the other main sector of work in Yemen is health and nutrition. This is where IRUSA has the majority of its funding going towards. IR Yemen as a whole has 14 health and nutrition projects supporting 162 health facilities. IRUSA is funding quite a bunch of that. We have 4 active projects currently and are working on both just general health of primary care. We're working on cholera response, so working in rehabilitation of latrines in diarrhea treatment centers and oral rehydration centers for people who are suffering from cholera, so that they have safe access while they're at these health facilities. And then we're also working on a nutrition project providing treatment for children under 5 and pregnant and lactating women who, which is basically pregnant women or women who are still nursing their children. And for those who have cases of moderate or severe acute malnutrition, to make sure that they are healthy enough and can get back to a healthy weight so that they do not suffer further and have other complications from that.
That's a lot of.
And then
14 projects, 162 health centers. It's really that's really impressive.
It's a lot, yeah. And in addition to just providing treatment, right? So not only are we providing treatment for patients, we're actually providing incentives to health workers, making sure that they can afford to continue going to work while still providing for their families and provide this much needed service. We're providing additional training on things like disease management, on caring for children, on maternal care, on just gynecology, on just all these different aspects of healthcare that it's always good to have a refresher course if you already know it, and if you don't know it, great, then you're learning something new. So these help. In addition to providing this healthcare, we're providing training to the healthcare providers and hiring specialists in these centers to make sure that you have a gynecologist, you have a primary health care doctor, you have a surgeon, you have what you need in these health facilities.
Excellent.
In addition to that, they do also do some support with vaccinations as well. Okay. So again, identification, referral, and treatment of cases, providing incentives and capacity building, which is the training that I was talking about. You'll see the next slide, we have a picture of a training on, I believe, the childhood management of diseases, or the management of childhood diseases. So making sure that these healthcare providers know how to work with children, especially because working with children is different than working with adults. This is some medicine and medical supplies that are distributed to the hospitals that are or health facilities that are being taken care of and working with Islamic Relief Yemen. And then, in addition to just like medicine and health supplies, there are some more specialized projects that happen. One project that IRUSA is supporting is an orthopedic center in Taiz Governorate in the city. We're working with IR Yemen and providing new limb manufacturing equipment so that people who have lost limbs in the conflict, from either the conflict or landmines that have been left behind, are able to receive prosthetics that are of a higher technology, a better quality. So we're providing those materials to have that technology in Yemen, but also hoping once the COVID situation allows to have people go from Yemen to receive training in Sweden, I believe it is, once the situation allows, so that they can get that and bring it back to their center in Taiz to train everybody there on how to use the machine.
That's amazing. It's funny, last week we were just talking with Anwar about Bosnia, and one of his earliest projects that he remembered going to visit was, like a facility. It was actually IR building where they were building like prosthetic limbs so it looks like this is something that IR is continuing to do even in the current context of our work. It's amazing.
It's a need. We go where we're needed.
Excellent. All right. think we're
getting close. I'm almost done, I promise.
Yeah.
This gives a quick overview of the number of people we've helped over the past 3 years. You can see the increase here from 2017. We reached 2,119,000 and some change beneficiaries. Unique beneficiaries means one person. So that person may have been helped multiple times, but we count them once in our system to avoid duplication, to make it look like our numbers. So we don't want to make our numbers look inflated. We don't want to make them look bigger than they actually are.
Right.
So these are how many individuals we help, even if they get helped by multiple projects. So that increased from 2.1 million to 3.4 million last year.
Amazing.
And last thing, just showing a couple. So Islamic Relief works with the IR family. So that includes Islamic Relief USA, Islamic Relief Canada, Islamic Relief UK, and all of the other donor partners. But in addition to that, they are working with UN agencies like WFP, as well as these other international NGOs to provide the services that they need. And that's the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara, for that. Let me give you a little. Thank you for that, Barbara. Really, again, for all of you who are watching, we wanted to spend some of these live streams, again, giving you kind of a deeper dive into our projects. Oftentimes, if we're going to visit you at a mosque or even a fundraising dinner, you're not able to get through this kind of depth of our work. And maybe you're not getting it when you're reading the different like newsletters and stuff that we send out. But this is a chance for you to hear directly from our program staff, people who are reading these statistics every day. They're getting these case studies. They're talking to our staff on the ground and around the world who are day in and day out trying to make the lives better for those in need. I really appreciate. I say, may Allah, someone, Bayina Abdullah, Alhamdulillah, may Allah, the Most High bless you all as foot soldiers. I'm a donor. Thank you, Bayina, for your donations and supporting us and supporting the great work. Last but not least, I wanted to talk. We talked a bit about COVID and what it means in the Yemen context. I have a quick video I wanted to show you guys really quick, and then maybe Barbara can tell us a little bit more about what COVID means to Yemen.
The situation in Yemen is becoming worse by the second. With COVID-19 spreading fast, the need already so great, the consequences for the people in Yemen are dire. Water is already scarce as drought continues. Hygiene is an afterthought where survival itself is so difficult, especially with rapidly spreading disease. The people of Yemen need your prayers, but most of all, they need your support. With Islamic Relief, you can help them cope with the coronavirus pandemic and provide emergency support. Islamic Relief is focusing on 160 health facilities across different governorates in Yemen, where we already have ongoing programming. We are establishing quarantine centers and working on prevention through education and awareness sessions. And when possible, we will be providing emergency aid in forms of health aid, food support, water and sanitation, and more. Please don't forget the people of Yemen. Donate today.
All right. We're talking about COVID. Everywhere we go, we're wearing. I got my mask here. This is one of my starter masks that I first started out with, and then as like everybody else, like we kind of got like really like we've been on Instagram and then we've been upgrading our masks. So I started out with this one. Then I got like a really cool one like this. It's on everyone's mind, and it affects everything. We're doing this. I would normally be doing this live stream sitting across from you at the office or being in our studio at the office, but I'm in my basement. You're in your kitchen or somewhere. You're in your house doing this. What does COVID mean in the context of what we're doing for the people in Yemen?
Yeah, I mean, it changes nothing and everything at this time. Yemen was already such a difficult context to work in that a lot of people are like, all right, well, here's one more thing. But there's also a lot of fear. There have been marked decreases in people going to healthcare centers for fear of getting COVID at these healthcare centers. People will wait until they're in critical condition with COVID-like symptoms before they'll seek support at one of the COVID centers that's either run by IR or by another INGO. So you see just a lot of fear surrounding it, a lot of uncertainty, and a part of that has to do with the fact that we're all still trying to figure out what's going on with the pandemic. And then on top of that, the facilities in Yemen are so limited and so, incapacitated by years and years of conflict that testing is incredibly difficult. It's hard to get the testing into Yemen. It's hard to process the testing in labs because there's only a couple labs that can do it. It's not uncommon for people to just be like, all right, I'm having these symptoms. I probably have it, but they can't confirm it.
Right.
One statistic I read was that the infection rate, or that the rate of it is 5 times higher than what it is elsewhere, because people's immune systems are worn down by years and years of conflict because there's not access to good health care, and it's just incredibly difficult to wash your hands regularly and have access to things like oxygen when you need it or a ventilator. It's extremely limited. IR Yemen is responding. We're working with the authorities and with the UN to set up, like the video said, we're setting up isolation centers. Some of that is providing, mattresses and blankets for those centers. IRUSA, for example, is funding one entire isolation center in Hadeh, the governorate. And so that's providing medicine, medical supplies, staff incentives so that they can work there, and just other needed equipment, as well as personal protective equipment for that facility and 45 other health facilities there. And so IR Yemen is doing that. It's providing, support to other health facilities, making sure that all of our distributions, all of our projects are trying to work under those COVID guidelines of staying 6 feet apart, wearing a mask, if you can't wash your hands, using hand sanitizer. So it's really been changing the way that they work, but they still have work that they have to continue because the situation is so dire. They haven't been able to, they can't just go home for a month and hope that they can isolate.
Right. Thank you again, Barbara, for sharing this. And I really wanted having someone like you come on and talk about the work when we talk about IR Yemen. And the work that's happening, especially when she talks about what IRUSA is able to fund. We're talking about you guys, the donors, the volunteers, the supporters, the people. Even if you don't donate, you're just sharing our information with friends and families. You are a part of that link. As our one of our founders and our president of Islamic Relief, Anwar, talked about that chain of love that reaches from here all the way to the people in need. And we're so grateful to and I like to remind people, hopefully we'll be able to remember about these times when we're able to come out of this, when we're able to come out of COVID, when the war in Yemen is finished. We can remember the times that we were those people who were in these times assisting, helping, aiding, doing whatever we could, making dua, prayers, donating. That's how I hope that many of us can remember these times. And speaking of Brother Anwar, and I'm gonna I can go ahead and go say farewell to you now, Barbara, and let you get on with the rest of your day. You got more charts and different things to read, and then we'll probably just end with this video with Anwar, because we gave you a very big context of what the structures in which we work, the context in which we work, some of the challenges, really the nuts and bolts of what it means to do international relief work and humanitarian work in Yemen. But what I would like to do is show this video with Anwar to give you a little more of the personal feel, some of his feelings, some of the things he saw, people he met, and he really opens up our hearts and our minds. Again, thank you, Barbara, for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to say before you part, or?
Thanks for having me on. It was really nice having a chance to talk to everybody about Yemen, and I hope that it encourages people to continue donating, because Yemen really does need every penny that it can get, and people need that aid. So I hope you found this useful. And
I found it extremely useful for me. I learned a lot, and that takes a lot for me to learn. Thank you. and again, and you guys will probably see more of Barbara. She looks after a lot of our work that we're doing throughout the Middle East. So when we start to talk about other places and throughout the region, we'll probably have her back on. And yeah, and she's before she was like really nervous when we heard about doing these things, and now it was like pretty easy, right? It's pretty good to go, right? All right,
It
awesome.
wasn't too bad.
All right, sweet. All right, thank you, Barbara, and for you
Thanks,
guys,
Naeem.
let's get to see about Anwar's trip. Take care, Barbara.
I'm in Hodeidah, 2 kilometers from the front line. I'm here in Sana'a, Yemen. I'm here in Tuban district, which is in Lahaj Governorate in the south of Yemen. There are 2 million displaced people in Yemen. Abdul fled the fighting twice. He lived in the Hajjah area near the Saudi Yemeni border. These are the stories that make up that number of 2 million. One of the acute problems here is malnutrition. You can see how small his hands are, and you can see the results of malnutrition. We didn't want him to take his clothes off to show you. We shouldn't eat it. So there's a whole backlog here. Outside in the corridor, there were men and women and kids on the floor. So everything is overflowing over here. I'm in a primary healthcare facility that Islamic Relief rehabilitated to become an active health clinic. It's got over 100 patients that come. As you can see, it's mostly women and little children that are coming. They're suffering from malnutrition, from cholera. We're struggling to get this message out, but if you just hear behind me, you can hear the cries. We should not turn our backs on the children of Yemen.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time today. You got to see a little bit, again, my goal today was to really give you 2 things so you could see, again, the nuts and bolts, what it takes, where your money has been going at Islamic Relief, and just the breadth of the work that we do, the size of it. Millions of people are being supported because, by Allah, because of your efforts. Continue to do these efforts. Please continue to do these efforts. And then having our good brother Anwar Khan at the end's video showing you, it's one thing to hear just about those stories and to hear about how many hospitals are being helped and how many governance we're in and how many volunteers and staff that are on the ground. But to see one of our own there on the ground, meeting those families, seeing these children, it is extremely moving. I hope you're moved to be able to do something for our brothers and sisters in Yemen. Go to IRUSA.org. Do what you can. These are the blessed days of Dhul Hijjah as you're sending up dua for your family and your loved ones and for all those who are close to you. Please remember the people of Yemen. Please remember Islamic Relief staff on the ground, and not just Islamic Relief staff, but just all staff. All people who are there to make a difference in the lives of those who are suffering. Make dua for them. It'll come back. Wallahi al-Azim, it'll come back. Make dua, honest dua, that Allah makes them successful in their mission to help those in need, that He brings the sakina, brings the tranquility to their hearts, and brings answers to those who are crying out for Him to give them great assistance. This is our Qurbani season. Please donate to the Qurbani program so you can feed families around the world in Yemen and other countries around the world. Thank you for your time. Again, today at 3 o'clock, there's more programming coming your way. There's 2 hours programming that we're going to be doing each of the days of the first 10 days of the Hijjah. Continue to join us. Continue to support. Join in some of our charity challenges. Go to irusa.org/team learn or /10 days to learn about all the work that we're doing, the things that we're doing, and you can be a part of. I want to see you a part of it. Take care, guys. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Take care.